Here with me today, podcaster, journalist, and author Kara Swisher. Reihan Salam, president of the Manhattan Institute and National Review contributing editor. New York Times journalist and the Interview podcast host Lulu Garcia-Navarro. And Jim Geraghty, writer for The Washington Post and National Review senior political correspondent. Welcome back, everyone. Jim, is Democratic rhetoric more inflammatory than what we're hearing from the Republicans?
That's a really high bar to clear. Now, when you run around saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, is it conceivable that some nut job out there says, oh my goodness, well, I better do something about that? It could happen. We had the report of the nut job up in Alaska who sent like a couple hundred horrifying, threatening messages to the Supreme Court justices. But the thing is, right now, most of the time when Kamala Harris goes out there, she doesn't want to say anything controversial. She doesn't want to, step on any kind of potential landmine. Trump, on his Truth Social feed, will retweet anything from anybody. And there's plenty of stuff that's in there that's incendiary, that's riling people up and all that kind of stuff. So, look, it's always going to be in the eye of the beholder. But Trump is a really high bar to clear when it comes to being worse and more incendiary.
Elon Musk, who is always anxious to throw more gasoline on the fire, contributed this to the conversation. And no one is even trying to assassinate Biden-Kamala. Lulu, are Democrats in any way to blame for these actions, these attempted assassinations of Trump? And is, particularly when they talk, as Jim mentioned, about the idea that he poses a threat to democracy and the future of the country?
I think we have to acknowledge at the moment that we are in a very perilous place in this country where political violence has become part of the experience of the election. And that is shocking. So leaving aside the rhetoric and why it happened, the fact is that it is happening more and more, and it is part of the kind of way that elections now get conducted in the United States of America. Assigning blame for this is, to me, a pretty depressing state of affairs because everyone can point fingers at everybody else at this point. I mean, I think Trump's rhetoric has absolutely injected, for the last 8 years, has made this country into this kind of cesspool that it is, but in terms of rhetoric. But I also think that we really have to look at these kind of insane people that are taking matters into their own hands. And that isn't about the rhetoric.
And let me just say, Elon Musk took that down and it was being investigated by the Secret Service as it should have. And it's nonsense what he was saying. He, of course, needs attention at all times, and so he has to weigh in on everything from Taylor Swift to this. But what's really going on, and I think it's hard to do, is we all are discussing rhetoric and how we treat each other when foreign adversaries are trying to gin up all kinds of discord between and among people, and nobody's paying attention to that. And Musk.
But we did get some this week in the question of Iran hacking.
Yes, of course, not just Iran hacking, but paying money, Russia paying money to certain podcasters. The issue is, it's a bigger issue than that, and we're all getting dragged into it, and these different people are creating it. And a lot of times with someone like Musk or Trump, every accusation is a confession, as far as I can tell.
Well, we're going to talk about it some more because it is going on, this rhetoric and the impact it's having. There's the tinderbox in Springfield, Ohio, about Haitian immigrants eating pets. The Wall Street Journal did a great report this week, found that the town city manager told a Vance staffer there was no verifiable evidence or reports to show that this was true, the idea about eating pets. The city manager, told them these claims were baseless. But the next day, Trump repeated the lie in his debate with Harris. Kara, why have Trump and Vance continued to make up lies about what's going on in Springfield, Ohio?
Because the number one rule of propaganda is to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it again, because they are lying, and that's what they're doing. And it works, and it gets through to some people. And the ones that think it's silly, including some of their own followers, they're just like, they're just being crazy. It doesn't matter, because they have the expression I'm hearing this week a lot is high floor, low ceiling. They're not going to lose. These people in the high floor don't care.
But it does something, I think, even more pernicious here, which it takes a group of people like the Haitians who are here legally, let's be clear, who went to Springfield to get jobs because they needed workers. They're not being placed there by the federal government, as has been implied. And what it does is it makes it sows division between people, that there are some real Americans who are actually, whose stories deserve to be told, who deserve to be heard by the media, and these Haitians somehow are inflicting harm.
Reihan, you know, there are real-life consequences here. Schools have shut down. There have been dozens of bomb threats. Why are Trump and Vance continuing to hit these lies about what's going on in Springfield?
So J.D. Vance is the senator from Ohio, and as such, he regularly hears from his constituents. There's been talk about incidents along these lines of people's pets going missing in Springfield, Ohio, since back in March. These appear to largely be rumors that are unfounded. However, after that conversation that the Wall Street Journal reported on happened, then Vance received further reports about this, according to his Senate office. This is something that is ongoing, where they then chased down.
Is there a single verifiable claim
They have sought
that
to
a pet was stolen from somebody's house and that a Haitian migrant ate it?
Not that I know of.
Well,
but what I will
okay
say,
then.
but what I will say is this: they are hearing these complaints, and what
Republicans are
Senator Vance was
against
seeking to
this.
do
Governor Mike
is draw
DeWine has
attention to what is
written in the New
happening in
York Times
Springfield,
that this is
Ohio,
absolutely baseless.
He then drew attention to this in a tweet. Then former President Trump, raised this in a debate. This then spiraled into a much larger story when I believe that Senator Vance was trying to draw attention to what was happening there.
No, because he's
and then I
doubling
think
down.
that this did
Reihan,
spiral out of
there's crocodiles
control.
in the toilet. This is what this is, and he's just
This was not.
continuing
He
to
was
say.
not lying about the reports that he
of course
and his
not,
office.
but then he should stop, because a rumor is a rumor. He should stop.
He is
Full stop.
talking about a range of
And an
issues. He is
entire
not
community
focusing
is
on this. This is
terrorized.
When he's talking about Haitians
is.
eating pets in Springfield, Ohio, he's not talking
No,
about a range of
no,
issues.
what he- no,
it's
he is-
either a
he is-
lie or it's the truth.
what his office continues to receive reports about this, which they were trying to chase down and
What?
understand. Look, I do not believe that this was the right rhetorical tack to take, but I do believe that he is not being
How about
deceptive or
just
dishonest.
as a moral tack.
I believe that he cares deeply about everyone in Springfield and everyone in Ohio, but that's not.
ask you a
I'm not here
question,
to
Reihan?
speak on his behalf.
Can I ask you a question? I'm really curious about
I'm
this.
trying to
because
offer some context. You guys are claiming that
We're
he is
getting the
lying.
context.
I'm getting
and
the
what he's-
context, but what I'm curious about is you have J.D. Vance, who is the senator from Ohio, and that is true. And it is a Republican-run state. You have the governor, you have the Republican mayor, you have Republican representatives, all saying that this is false, defamatory, and more than that, hurtful to the community, the people that supposedly both Trump and Vance are trying to help. And so
This is the same Senator
the-
Vance who is speaking out about the people of East Palestine, Ohio,
No.
in a similar
No,
situation.
you're not going to switch
Drag
to. You're not going to switch to another
I'm trying to
place.
offer
We're
some context.
No, we're talking about
Please.
Springfield, Ohio, Reihan. So, I mean, let's stay on the subject.
Well, I'm saying something very simple, which is that he's hearing from people who normally are not listened to. He is hearing from people who are normally
Again,
not
I don't-
trusted and
we're
discounted.
not talking about. We're talking about a fact. Either it happened or it didn't.
And it's also
He does not
what
have
people
the-
are you
Jim,
supposed to
I don't know.
listen
What do you-
to?
There are 1,000,001 legitimate gripes you can make about Biden's immigration policy, Biden's asylum policy, the border, all that kind of stuff. Instead, Donald Trump, who doesn't like to bother with policy details, on the debate stage went with the thing was probably very easy to remember. Did you see this? They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. Very simple, very easy to remember, and that's what gets out there. And I suppose in some really cynical argument, you could say, well, that's not true, but it gets people talking about Haitians. But it's far too much of a transitive property. I just love to have a candidate who knew what he was talking about.
I think
would
there's
say
no
one
question
thing.
that this
One
is not.
thing,
This is not the way they.
He literally just said, "I'm going to keep calling them illegal aliens, even though they're not." He's doubling. He just said that in a thing. So what is happening with this person that he can't?
Sorry, which person are you referring to?
J.D. Vance. Why can't he stop? Really, is what he needs.
I think that Senator Vance is in an extremely challenging media environment right now. I think that he's made some bad calls. And I also think that the ferocious response to it has elicited a response that has not been entirely constructive from him. And I think it's a really rough situation for the campaign. But I also think that this has moved the focus to the border chaos and the migration issue, for what it's worth.
By making up a lie. Okay.